honestly, I feel like there are not any right words to really explain how I feel about what happened. All I can really think of is just letting out a really deep, long sigh. Today I'll be talking about the other side of the story of what happened when I met Dan and Phil at VidCon. And yes, there were some problems that didn't only affect me. This is not an issue that I'm talking about that it didn't only personally affect me, but it affected a lot of people who were in this line and who were in this meetup for Dan and Phil. And I'm just going to talk about my personal experience with the issue, and I can't really speak for everyone, and I can't, and I won't do that. This is just from my perspective and little things that I've heard and witnessed. So if you watched my meeting Dan and Phil video, um, I'm going to preface that story a little bit from the very beginning, which I didn't really explain. I kind of just jumped into my experience meeting them, but I'm going to preface it a little more for you to kind of have a bigger understanding of what I experienced. So 2:30 was when the meet and greet for Dan and Phil opened up. So I didn't get, and they give you about half an hour grace period after that 2:30 time to be able to like find the place and to be able to get through security and get in line. So you practically had from 2:30 to 3 o'clock to get to the meet and greet. So I didn't really get into the building for the meet and greet until I want to say 2:40, 2:45. So by that time 2:45 came around, I noticed that the line for security was horrendously long. It stretched like from many different hallways. And thankfully, if you were already in line for security, you are guaranteed to get through security to get into line for the meet and greet. So that part I wasn't really stressed about. It was after going through security that was when it got pretty stressful. So I got through security and everything, and on my wristband, and I'll insert a picture, Dan and Phil's meet and greet was at line 15. So I scattered my way through, and I'm stumbling my way through the meet and greet lines, and I find my way to line 15, and there's no one there. It's this backdrop thing, and then there's a table, but then there's no one standing there, and there's no one standing in front of that little section. But I see a small group of people at the far way back of line 15, but they were nowhere near like the front. So that right there looked really odd to me. So I'm asking the security guard at line 15, like, oh, hi, do you know where the Dan Phil meet and greet is? And he was looking at me like, Dan Phil, who? What? And at that point, I was just like frustrated because that security guard asked the security guard next to him, and the other guy didn't even know who I was talking about either. So I'm like running around, I'm frustrated, and then after talking to a few other security guards, I finally found the right person. And I noticed that at line 11, it was very, very, very crowded. And something told me I think they moved the meet and greet. But what really caught my attention was that the meet and greet at line 11 was very overcrowded. It was overcrowded to the point where it definitely exceeded 300 people. Definitely exceeded over 300 people. And that right away, I knew something was wrong. The whole situation didn't even look right to me in the very beginning. And the security guard told me, oh, you're here for the Dan Phil meet and greet? Go to line 15. And then I looked at her really confused and I said, well, is this not the meet and greet right here for Dan and Phil? And she said, yes, it is, but you have to go to line 15. And I was just like, what in the world is going on? So, okay, I went back to line 15, back to where the security was, the really confused security guard in the beginning, and he told me, oh, you're here for Dan and Phil's meet and greet? Oh, go at the back of the line. And the group of people who were at line 15 probably was around like 60 people, I would say. So if there were more than about 300 people at line 11 where Dan and Phil supposedly was, why is there another large group of people over here at line 15? So that right there kind of made me really confused, because at this point in the meet and greet process, I have already met 2 other creators, and nothing like this happened. And even the 4th creator I met after Danville, nothing like that happened either after that. So I knew something was wrong, and I'm wondering, this cannot be 250 people. 250 people does not look like this. Because if you went through the meet and greet or lottery system and went through all of that, you would know that the maximum amount of people, the capacity for each meet and greet is 250 people. So I'm just sitting at the end of the line like, okay, maybe it's not Dan and Phil. I'm just kind of like trying to reason through this. So I end up being like around 7th or 8th person from being the last person. And we're all kind of confused, like, I don't know what's going on. Line 15, we're told that this is where the meet and greet is. I don't know why everyone's over there, but okay, anyways. So I think around 2 hours fly by and I'm sitting in the exact same spot. I haven't even moved an inch, okay? I'm at line 15 and line 11 is where Dan and Phil show up and they meet a ton of people. After 2 hours, the line hasn't even moved. And I'm just really baffled at this point. Like, I feel like it shouldn't take this long for a meet and greet. For 250 people, 2 hours should probably be the maximum. And at this point, it was starting to be inching towards 5 o'clock. And so it was going towards 3 hours of waiting in the exact same spot without moving. I knew something was wrong when, after 2 hours or so of meeting the reviewers, Dan and Phil disappeared. I just like looked up 1 second and they were gone. And at that time I was panicking because I thought like, shit, Danville are gone. They met 250 people and they're gone. But no, what turned out at that point was that they've already met a lot of people in a few hours, definitely exceeded 250 people. And they were exhausted and they needed a break. So they went for a water break from what I've seen and heard. And at that point, it was 4 o'clock, and they even haven't gotten close to my section yet. So, what happened, and I later found this out by the security guard who did a poor job of just letting us know. So, what the security guard told us was that a lot of people cheated the system. So, I think there were around 10 people, 10 feature creators who had the same time of meet and greets as Dan and Phil. And if you had a meet and greet within the 2:30 time frame, you were given a certain color wristband. And I guess when people found out what time Dan and Phil's meet and greet was, they found their way to get that colored wristband, and all they had to do was switch the sticker number. It started so much spark within people into cheating the system. And so what ended up happening was that an excess number of people ended up being in line when they shouldn't have. So I think probably around 400 to 500 people ended up being in line for the Dan Phil meet and greet when it was supposed to be 250. And this infuriated me so much when I heard that news, because not only was it disrespecting me and anyone else who fairly and rightfully and respectively got their place in line, they were disrespecting Dan and Phil. But then it doesn't stop there, it gets worse. So People, of course, snuck in. They managed to find their way in line for the meet and greet. And by 5:15, 5:20, a security guard passes by us, and I see him talking to the girls who stand at the very far end of the line, and he was saying something to them. My friends and I in line were curious, and we're like, oh, what did he say to you guys? And he said the most frustrating, upsetting news I've ever heard at that point in my life. We were told that we probably were not going to meet Dan and Phil. When I heard those words, my heart just instantly sank. Because imagine yourself on the day of the lottery system opened their results and they let anyone who entered the meet and greet lottery system to check their results. Imagine you open your results and you found out you got your first choice creator. And then months fly by and you're kind of anticipating it. You're kind of planning out every little thing that you want to say to them, that you want to get them to sign, or different pose ideas, whatever it may be, but you're excited because you're thinking to yourself that I finally get to meet my favorite creator. And then when the day comes to meet that creator, you're told that you probably aren't going to meet them today. That's what happened. Later on, we were told that because at that point, Dan and Phil have already met God who knows how many people. And to them, we were just an extra 60 or so people. And that was just going to take up more time. And what's infuriating and it's so frustrating is that all that time, all that time they spent meeting the viewers beforehand were people who didn't rightfully earn it, who didn't get Dan and Phil's name drawn in the lottery system. They weren't even supposed to be in line. And they got to meet Dan and Phil. And the people who cheated the system are the people that got rewarded. Yet the people who rightfully got their name drawn in the system was being punished. That didn't sit right with me. That didn't. So later on, as time flies by, my friends were crying. I was holding in the tears. At that point, I was confused. I was conflicted. I didn't know how. I didn't even know what was happening. I don't know why that was happening. But I knew for a fact that if I ended up not meeting them, I was going to fight somebody. Later on, as time flies by, after many waterworks, we were told that the security told us that they were going to do a security check because about 100 people were found out and were found by security and they were kicked out. About 100 people. And they said what they're going to do is they're going to start checking your name if it is drawn in the lottery system. And they want your full name in the system. And they're going to check for your name. And if your name is not in the system, then you could not stand in line. So whether you were replacing a friend for the meet and greet, you could not stand in line. It had to be your name in the system. And so security was going around and they were saying if you are caught without your name being in the system, they were going to remove your badge and you would not be able to attend VidCon and you'd be kicked out if you were caught red-handed. And then the security guard, he said, I'm going to let you go at this, get up and leave, and I'm going to turn my back. And so you're not going to be in trouble. I'm just going to give you a chance to do what's right and get up and leave if you do not deserve to be here. So the security guard turned around his back to us, and instantly at that moment, people got up and they left. And I was just baffled, like, holy shit. Imagine if they did that in the very beginning of the meet and greet. Imagine how many people would have gotten up and left. So I think this whole story just boils down to people, if you have cheated the system, please be mindful of those who you're affecting, and the decisions that you have and the decisions that you make can really have consequences and can really have detrimental effect on other people's lives. And for people who have cheated the system, no, what really kind of upsets me more than my chance of meeting them was the fact that you are not respecting the people around you. And this kind of reminds me of Markiplier's video of when he talks about respect. And that's the human basic rights. That's our basic human rights, people. Every single person, whether you like them or you don't like them, deserves to be given respect. And like as Markiplier has said, which I think fits perfectly in this situation, there's two different types of people that you probably categorize themselves in these type of situations. There are people that you probably think and would stoop low to treat them and to think of them as scum, as trash. And there's people who you idolize and you put them on some sort of pedestal, like there's some sort of god and idol. If you go in great lengths to categorize people like that, you are dehumanizing them. You are no longer treating them like a human being. They're just like you and they're just like me. The only difference is that their life is it's for public, it's on camera, but they're people. They have lives outside of YouTube. When they're doing things like meet and greets, they're not being compensated. They're doing this for their viewers to meet us. At least have, the audacity to give them the respect that they deserve. Every single one of us, whether it's Dan and Phil, whether it's us, the viewers, whether it's your teacher, the librarian, the janitor, we are all humans. And no matter what place we are in life, every single person, though, deserves to be given respect. And because people have cheated the system, you are disrespecting every single person that stands in line who rightfully earned their place for the meet and greet. You're disrespecting Dan and Phil big time because Dan and Phil are doing this for their viewers and they appreciate and they love every single one of us. But if you don't deserve to be in line to meet them, then you are disrespecting their time. You're adding an extra person in line. You're not just replacing a person. Some people, I understand if you're replacing you're replacing your friend for yourself instead. That is fine because you're not adding people into the equation. But for people who cheated the system, you're doing nothing but adding more and more people in line. And if you went to the meet and greet, and if you're thinking of going to a meet and greet of theirs, and you are cheating the system, and all you want to do out of that, all you want to get out of that meet and greet is just to get a picture with them and to get a hug, but mostly just to get a picture for bragging rights, you were in line and you're meeting Dan and Phil for the wrong reasons. I'm sorry, but that's just how I see it. If you were a loyal follower of Dan and Phil's, you would be patient and you would want to meet them when the time is right. And when your chance comes and you rightfully earned your place to be in line and you found out that you got Dan and Phil, that's the most amazing feeling in the world. But please don't cheat the system. Like, don't do it. It's not fair. And if you love and if you appreciate Dan and Phil as creators, as people, you would be at least mindful of the fact that they have lives, they have time. They only have so much time to meet all their followers. At least be mindful that they're doing as best they can to get to everyone, but there will be a time they'll meet you. But just for that moment, they should be able to meet their loyal followers who actually got their names drawn from the lottery system. At least do that for them, you know? After 3 hours of waiting in line, the small group in line 15 finally got moved to line 11, and by that point, we are guaranteed to meet Dan and Phil. And I noticed that when I was in line 11 and I was like a few yards away from Dan and Phil, I noticed that Phil was really tired. He was giving hugs like, hi, and he was just like so exhausted. If you were a fan of Dan and Phil's, by that time, you probably would have known that they had experienced some traveling disasters beforehand, and they literally went 2 days without sleep. So by doing a meet and greet the next day, it was just adding to their restlessness. And so I was feeling so terrible for being in line and for just being an extra person for them to meet. But I shouldn't have felt that. And I'm honestly surprised that security didn't do anything and they didn't act earlier on in the situation. But, you know, it is what it is. And I feel kind of sad that when this experience could have been really happy for me, it ended up being something that kind of tainted this happy memory with some negative light because of some people who just wanted to cheat the system. To anyone out there who's in the fandom, anyone out there who hasn't met Dan and Phil yet, know that your time will come. You will meet them. For someone like me who had absolute no idea I was going to meet them for VidCon, you will. The chances are there. It's not none. There's a possibility that you will. Dan and Phil come to the US every single year, and they go to conventions, they go to different places and events, and if you keep up tabs with them, you will be able to come across them. I promise you will. But please don't go out of your way to cheat the system. Please don't do it. Don't. You get nothing out of that other than bragging rights and a picture. And again, if that's all you're going for the meet and greets for, you're going for the wrong reasons. Please be mindful of the people who rightfully got the meet and greet with Dan and Phil, and be mindful of Dan and Phil's time. Be mindful and be respectful of every person around you, even those who you idolize. Respect them as people. Because time is something that you cannot get back. You can't get back time. I am sorry if my video comes across as very rambly, but I know that if you are one of the people who cheated the system, know that I forgive you for what you did, but please don't do it again. Please. I'm not trying to like point fingers and be the bad guy. I'm just trying to point out what happened and trying to encourage people to do what's right. Okay? I hope that anyone out there who's watching know that if you have to take away anything from this video, know that the most basic human thing you can do to another human or anything else around you is to give them respect. Until next time, bye.